Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Today, I have Monica Tanner on with me. Monica, hi. Thanks for being with me.
So happy to be here.
Okay, let me tell everyone a little bit about you and then I'll hand it over to you. So, you are a relationship and intimacy coach, and you and I got connected on Facebook, which is my story with everyone. I've met so many amazing people on Facebook. But we are in some groups together, and we're both in the realm of working with people in relationships and just really helping people have the kind of relationship that they want to have. And you specifically do a lot of work on emotional intimacy, and you do a lot of other things, but I'm going to have you introduce it better because I don't want to butcher it. But let me hand it over to you. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, what you do, and then we'll jump into our topic.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, my name is Monica Tanner. Like you said, I've been married for 22 years to a super, super hunky man. We have four kids together. Our oldest is 20 and our youngest is 12. So, we stay very busy with lots of teenage excitement activities, sporting events. I started doing relationship coaching about 6 years ago. I'm a big fan of RLT, which stands for Relational Life Therapy. I feel like it's a super, super effective way to work with couples on the dynamics that are happening inside of their marriage that are very hard to see. So, oftentimes, two really great people get caught in some a little bit maybe dysfunctional or not as optimal dynamics as they would like, and it keeps them very stuck in resentment. We create some roommate syndrome and just not optimal um, environment to really grow and thrive. And so I have learned over the years that marriage can be such an incredible, wonderful place for growth and learning and fulfillment and joy. And I love to see couples really start to change those dynamics that are keeping them stuck.
I love it. And one of the things that I am really excited about with our topic today is so we're talking about emotional intimacy. And why I love this is because I'm a big proponent of being married to your best friend, right? Like the idea of really not just loving, but liking your spouse and wanting to do things
Yes.
together. And it motivates you to nurture the relationship differently if you can look at this person and want more for them, not just for yourself. Your own needs are obviously important, but the needs of this person you've chosen to live your life with and the needs of the relationship, when that is the focus, then the reward for you is amazing, right? And so um, emotional intimacy is really one of the big things that we work on to achieve that, to really nurture that. And so tell us a little bit about what is emotional intimacy and why is it important?
Yeah. So, like you said, we do expect a lot from marriage these days, right? We want to be married to our best friend. We want to be married to the person who supports us and pushes us and helps us grow and fulfills us and completes us and all of those things, right? And some of those things are truer than others. But we can create an environment where we are married to somebody that we really do like and love at the same time. And that's what makes marriage so fun. I think people often come to me and they often I think the canary in the coal mine is kind of a loss of sexual attraction. Like that's usually the first thing that people are like, really upset about. And the thing about sexual intimacy is, for the most part, we know how to have sex. Like we know, kind of the mechanics of it and how to do it. And the problem is if something is lacking there, it's usually a function of how we feel about each other, of some gunk that has gotten in the way. And so emotional intimacy is really just the connection, the feeling of closeness. It's being able to answer the question, are you there for me? Like, can I depend on you? Can I trust you to help me create a really safe environment for both of us to be vulnerable and to grow and to share our dreams? And I think the best marriages are ones in which both partners can really thrive, can really go after the things that are most important to them, where they're supportive of each other, where they're there for each other in the very high times and in the very low times. And so that is really what emotional intimacy is. It's that feeling of trust and safety and like and love.
Yeah, that's a great definition. So when you have people that come to you because they are struggling in their marriage and they want to work on this, how do people get to a point where their relationship is lacking that emotional intimacy? I guess let's think of some, because I think, someone who's in that place can say, "Oh, I'm in that place." But what are some hallmarks of emotional intimacy missing or gone wrong in a relationship?
Yeah. So, what I really want to emphasize here is that emotional intimacy, it's a dynamic, it's a feeling of closeness that's created between two people. And I think the most important thing to remember about this is you can have two really great people that get caught in a really bad dynamic, and that's usually the driver of feeling disconnected. It's not that you're bad or your partner is bad or you made the wrong decision or you shouldn't be together. It's usually, as humans, we all have experiences. We all have what's called big T or little t trauma, like things that we've learned from our upbringing, from past relationships. And we bring this into the relationship. And a lot of times it just, my trigger points, my wounds, my biggest fears don't really mix with yours. And I actually think this is like a beautiful thing. My mentor Terry Real calls this the mysticism of marriage. We usually end up with the exact right person who is going to trigger all of these things in a way that we're able to grow from them or grow out of them. And so it's usually perfectly designed. It's like the perfect laboratory for growth, but we have to be able to see these dynamics, see our kind of our trigger points and be able to work on them. And a lot of times what happens is we can't see it ourselves, right? We're kind of stuck in this bottle. I always say you can't see the label from the inside of the bottle. So, couples think maybe there's something wrong with us or wrong with our relationship because we can't figure this out on our own. When in reality, it's just you're too close to it. You're in the dynamic.
Mm.
And so it helps to have a neutral third party like you or I to be able to point out this is what you're doing and it's creating this and that dynamic. And then your partner is responding with this. And that dynamic is what's keeping you stuck, not because either one of you is flawed in any way.
Yeah, it's such a good point because I think the fear is what gets in the way, right? Like if you have a conflict with someone, but you see the next step out, like you see that, okay, well, there's safety and security in this relationship, we'll talk about it and we'll be fine. But if there is something that prevents you from being able to see past this moment and past this obstacle, then the world kind of crashes down around you and you feel very worried or trapped or I don't know, you can't see that it's going to get better. And then you have, if you don't go back and do the healing work, which you and I will get into in a minute, but if you can't repair the little thing that went wrong, and then you just kind of push past it, then the next thing that goes wrong, and the next thing that goes wrong, all you're doing is piling up these little hurts that are often due to misunderstandings or misperceptions of the situation. And then before you know it, you've created this huge wall between you and your partner or your spouse, and then the problem is harder to recover from. But I think you described it perfectly, like the things that we bring into our relationship so often shape the way we look at this other person, right? Like you could absolutely adore this person, but if their behavior or their struggle in their own life kind of brings out an insecurity in you or reflects an insecurity in you, or you can't help that person, then you start to feel inferior, or you start to feel like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong. Like that's just an example. But so many of us see a struggle in our spouse and somehow internalize it. And before we know it, we're off the same page, or we somehow feel like we're against each other when really we just need to learn how to come together because we are very different people. No matter how similar we really are, we're still uniquely different people. And we have to learn how to be there for each other and support each other. And I think a lot of people are scared, like, but we shouldn't struggle like this. Like, we love each other. We should read each other's minds and be amazing. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, but that's not realistic. Like, you have to do some work.
There's so much I love about what you said, starting with the repair and how important repair is, right? It was we're always coming from two different perspectives, two different experiences, two different worldviews, right? And so it's really important. John Gottman calls these regrettable incidences, right? We have, during the course of a day, we're always going to have little points in where we don't match up or we disagree, where we see things differently. And so it's really important to learn how to repair from these regrettable instances. The problem is with repair is that there are so many things that complicate it, right? There's so many, just sometimes they are losing strategies, like things that we picked up growing up, ways to handle disagreements or conflict, where either we withdraw or we defend or we go one up or we get controlling, or there's all these different things that we again carried with us into the relationship that are now they might have been really useful to us in a past relationship, but maybe in this relationship they're very losing strategies. And so there are skill sets that we can learn to help us repair, to help us reconnect, to help us stay in that space of loving each other and seeing each other and being able to support each other and disagree at the same time.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So before we jump into repair, I think let's to make it identifiable, I guess. So when we talk about emotional intimacy, I
Mhm.
want to define it a little bit in the sense of day to day. So I view it, and tell me if you see it the same way, but emotional intimacy, I think, plays out in the way that we connect, right?
Mhm.
The way we talk to each other, the way we joke with each other, the way we help each other, the way we support and teamwork together, right? It's not, because I think typically, obviously, when we say intimacy, people are like, "Ooh, this is really like mushy gushy, maybe sex, maybe physical touch, but it's like super physically connected." And yeah, absolutely. But to connect emotionally and to have that intimacy emotionally, it doesn't have to be this like we sat down and stared into each other's eyes for 3 hours. Like it's I've got you. I'm supporting you. You're having a hard day and I can pick up that slack maybe that you just don't have the energy to give. But help me come up with more examples of like what does emotional intimacy look like day to day for couples?
I think emotional intimacy has a lot to do with just trust, safety, and security. But really, when it comes down to it, I'm leading a book club right now on John Gottman's 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, and so I'm just going to pull this from Gottman
Mhm.
and knowing each other's, having an updated love map of each other is his first principle. So that means really knowing each other's inner worlds, like understanding what makes my partner tick, what gets them excited, what makes them nervous, what are the things that they really enjoy in life, what are their dreams and goals, what drives them towards those things. Like knowing those things about our partner is what is going to help us have a better understanding and appreciation for them. And then the second principle is really nurturing a fondness and admiration for each other. So it's not just knowing who your partner is, but also really respecting them and holding them, in high regard, even when you might be upset with them or even when you disagree with them. It's being able to say, my partner is worthy of my respect and my love and my admiration, even when they're getting on my nerves, right? And so when those two areas are very, very strong, that is that emotional intimacy. That's that connection that will help you weather the conflicts and the difficult challenges that you're going to face. So
Mhm.
that's a good way for me to think about it, is knowing
Yep.
who your partner is and then holding them in high regard.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the liking each other, right? Like
Right.
if I like you, then I just enjoy your company a little bit more, and so I think it's looking for moments throughout your day where you participate in behaviors that communicate, I like you. I like
Mhm.
you. I care about you. I care if you're struggling. And if you're struggling and I'm struggling, I'm still going to do my best to support you because I trust that you're going to support me. Right. And so, kind of like to your point, that trust and safety is if we're both in this together and we've both committed to being good teammates, then I don't have to I don't have to shut down when I'm struggling. And like if I see you struggling and I'm also struggling, I don't have to go into defense mode and be like, well, screw you. I'm going to take care of myself because I have that trust that we do this for each other to the best of our ability. We're not perfect. We're going to struggle. But like the goal is, oh my God, I'm a hot mess, but what can I do for you? Because you're going to do that same thing for me. Right. And so, that's what we're looking for. So let's go into repair. So, what would even give us a need to repair? How does some of this intimacy, emotional intimacy, go wrong? And how do we do it? How do we help repair it?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the most important things to understand about the repair process, and it's one of the most important things to understand and one of the hardest things to actually put into practice, is that repair is a one-way street. It's not the two of you um, each being seen in the moment. Repair is like one person at a time. So, really, the idea behind this is the way Gottman says it, is when my partner is sad or hurt or in pain, the world stops and I listen. So, anytime one of you is dysregulated or feels upset or hurt or concerned about something, this is difficult, but really, really important, is that you stop, and instead of defending yourself against it or throwing your grievances into the ring right at that moment, or um, you know, it, trying to get your needs met at the same time as they're getting their needs met, or explain why this is happening. It's really important to just listen. And so the words I like to use are compassionate curiosity. It's like your partner comes to you and says, "Hey, I really don't like what just went down," or I don't like the way you spoke to me in front of the kids, or the way you told that story at dinner. I really didn't appreciate that, right? Our first inclination as a human is going to be to defend or to minimize or to, kind of try to control the situation. When in reality, what we need to do is show some compassionate curiosity, like, wow, I don't want you to be hurting or sad right now. Tell me more about it. What can I do to help you feel better? Not because it will make me feel more comfortable if you're contained and not upset anymore, but because I really care about you. And the word I think you were circling around, the way I like to describe that emotional intimacy, is cherish. I really cherish you. I cherish our relationship. I really don't want you to be sad. And I want to understand more about it. Not so, again, I can defend myself or, contain your emotions so I'll feel better. It's because I want to understand what happens in your inner world when you're feeling upset, when you feel embarrassed, when, I told a story that you didn't like, or I talked to you in a certain way in front of the kids, or this didn't pan out the way you expected. I want to know more about that experience for you. So, not so that I can fix it, but so I can understand it. And so I can have some compassion and empathy and love for you as a human, right? That's repair. But it's very counterintuitive, because when somebody's coming at you and they're upset, even if it's not about you, even if it's just about something else that you're not quite understanding, we want to like push back. We want to defend ourselves. We want to minimize their emotions. And so that's what this is this skill. And it's like a muscle. It's like going to the gym and working a muscle that you're not used to working. It's very, very difficult. But once you start to strengthen that muscle, the repair process becomes really a beautiful way to connect emotionally.
Yeah, no, so well said. And I think that it takes a few things to get there, right? And it starts with, it's easier to handle conflict when you've invested good stuff, like the good stuff cushions, right?
Mm,
So if we spend time together and we nurture each other and we encourage each other, blah, 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 we have fun. Then when there is this moment of, hey, that did not feel good, then it's easier. It's like you can pull that positivity with you a little bit and you kind of wrap yourself in it and it cushions you so that now you can take this hard thing without feeling the daggers going deep. Like it becomes a little bit you can and this is hard to do, but it's like you can see that it's not because you suck. It's because you're human and
yeah.
you enacted a behavior that wasn't really well received. Maybe you need a dose of self-awareness. Maybe it was just an unexpected, complete slip up, whatever. But regardless, it's the idea that if we don't teach each other respectfully, right? You can't walk up to the person and be like, you know what, that was uh, you know, F bomb, rude of you to do. No. If you're gonna point out an issue, you do it with respect because you want a calm response back. So if I present to you calmly, then my hope is that you'll respond calmly. But you have to establish these um, patterns, I guess, being able, something as simple as let's listen to these two women talk to us about this, Monica and Navarre. This makes sense. How do we implement this? What do we want
Mhm.
to do differently? How do we want to come to each other differently? Here's what I need to work on because I tend to come at you at the worst time in the worst way, or I'm always defensive, whatever. So implementing these plans, and then you can kind of practice like your muscle, right? The more you practice and practice and practice, the easier it is to pull that out in a moment of conflict. But at the end of the day, I am not getting defensive is so hard. You made it such a clear point. It's human nature. But I think that to do that, we really do have to know the other person's intentions. Are you with me or are you against me? If you're with me, then when you point out a flaw or a mistake in me, then I know you're not doing it to rub my nose in it. You're doing it because you want to nurture our relationship. So I just talked in circles. I don't know.
No, there's a lot of really great things that you just said. I like how you're basically, if you hold your partner in high regard, meaning you're nurturing that fondness and admiration, like you said, and you have respect. It's easier to come to your partner and I don't know if you meant to make me feel bad in this instance, but do you know what I'm saying? It's like having goodwill towards them, like expecting that they had good intentions, right?
Yes.
And so that's going this way. And then the same, giving the same kind of respect going the other way. Like, okay, maybe my partner came at me in a very aggressive way. But I know that they're in some sort of pain and I'd like to understand more about that. And I give this example because it happened just very recently. Like, I know all this stuff. Like, I'm teaching all this stuff. Like, this is constantly what I'm teaching my clients, this skill, right? But regardless, a few weeks ago, my husband and I were on a vacation and he was upset about some things that had gone on in the evening parts of our vacation. Like, he wasn't happy. He was like, I wish that this had happened and this had happened and this had happened, right? And we went on this walk on the beach and I could tell that he was upset, and of course, I wanted to know why. And so he started, laying out like, I'm kind of upset about what happened this night and kind of upset about what happened this night. And my immediate response was to get defensive. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm doing the best that I can. Like, I was defending myself. And I had to recognize that, of course, he amped up, I amped up, as that's what those losing strategies will do. They'll usually amplify whatever's happening, right? And so, of course, at some point, I realized it, like, oh man, I'm doing exactly what I teach people not to do.
Mm.
And then I just apologized. And of course, he was like, you're trying to blame me. And I'm like, nope, in this moment right now, I am so very sorry. Like, I didn't handle that very well. And so we made up and, everything was good. And we're having lunch right before we're about to leave this resort. We're on vacation. And he was like, "What are you most upset about right now?" And I was truthfully, like, honestly able to say with 100% conviction of my own, I am most upset by the way I handled that situation, right? Like whether I agree with what you were upset about in those evenings, I did not handle that well. I should have just listened to you, heard you out, and let you know that even though I may or may not have agreed with everything you said, that I heard it and that it
Yeah.
was valid, right? And so we're not going to get it right every time, you guys. 100%, even if we are totally immersed in teaching this, we're still going to get it wrong. But there's always time to repair, right? You can repair after the repair attempt. So
Yeah.
just, and the other thing that I like to point out is that even if you're doing these things badly, right? Once you start to learn these relational skills, even if you're doing them badly, you're still miles and miles and miles ahead of A, what most people do, and B, what your just gut reaction is going to be. As soon as you realize, like, oh my gosh, I just pulled into that gut reaction, that knee jerk reaction, that, without censoring what I do, you can pull out of it. It's never too late.
Girl, I love that you shared that. Thank you so much for sharing your story because it's so humbling to admit when we make a mistake and you like your story is just so real. Like it's that I reacted in a way that I don't want to react. I can't stop the reaction, but I know I shouldn't be doing it. And it's this cycle of like I want to stop because I know it's not okay, but I didn't realize it till too late. And you're right. Like we're not, and I think there are some people that think that because we teach this that we make no mistakes and that our marriages are just
Right. I
perfect. Like there's
never
no
want
such
anyone to think
thing.
that.
No. No, some of my hardest like even I think in terms of parenting, like I teach parenting skills as part of being a therapist and all that and had some stories where I'm like, "Oh my God, that was the worst mommy moment." Like, I'm so ashamed of how I handled that or whatever, but like because we're human. But do we use that excuse and just say, "Well, that's just the way I am?" Or do we repair and do we learn? And what I love about your example with your hubby is that it led to another conversation and then another conversation and you grew like it strengthened your relationship. Sure, it would have been great if that had never happened because those are kind of yucky things to go through, but because of that you now know something about yourself and you understand maybe why you took that personally when you shouldn't have, and you also now know how to maybe handle travel plans a little differently because you now have learned from that. And so and I love that you humbled yourself to be able to apologize and just let him know that his feelings were valid. So way to go. We
Yeah,
need to
and
do
it
like
100% doesn't mean I'm
Mhm.
gonna get it right the next time.
No.
It doesn't. But you're right. It does mean I learned a few things about myself, learned a few things about our relationship, and made our relationship, like, raise the capacity of our relationship to handle those moments,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that, I think back to when my husband and I got together, like we've been together today. I was just posted, we've been together for 21 years. I don't feel old enough for that, but it's true. And I think back to who I was, right? As a 19-year-old. Um, I was fairly mature, but I was much more I'm a sensitive emotional person. It's just who I am, but I hadn't learned how to control or manage and not take things super personally, right? So things hurt my feelings a lot more. And I think to the way we joke and play around now and the season of our marriage now versus where we were when we first met, the fun is still there. We're still goofy kids, but the comfort in not just our relationship but me, like this the just the confidence in who I am as a person helps me be less defensive in the marriage, right? So if there is something that I'm doing wrong, oh my God, I would get my feelings hurt because I made a mistake and he pointed it out. Like, well, I did the thing. Like, deal with it. Let's talk about it. Let's heal through it and let's move on. But now I'm like, Oh, yeah, you're right. Whoops, I'm so sorry. And we move forward. Like the process is so much different because we've learned and we've grown and we've really worked out that muscle, but I will always be a sensitive girl and that comes out sometimes and I have to that's my responsibility. Like he's responsible for his part and how he talks to me. I'm responsible for myself and how I listen and how I receive stuff, but um there are certain things that no matter how much I strengthen that, like I just have to be mindful that these are I don't want to say weaknesses because I don't think it's a weakness, but I think it's an area that needs continuous growth.
Yes, yes. Areas of sensitivity is like how I would
Mhm.
call it. But yeah, you just keep doing the reps. And again, remembering like even if you do it badly, you're still doing so much better. You're strengthening that muscle. And it's not something that comes in these big, broad, you can't have a huge workout once a month and expect to get stronger, right? It's like
Right.
every single day you go to the gym and you work out those muscles and then they repair and then you break them down
Yep.
again and then they repair, right? And so it's just it really any skill that is worth learning, you've got to go through that process. You've got to be weak before you're strong, right? You've got to be bad before you can be good. And if
Mhm.
you're willing to invest that in the relationship, you'll see those changes that you're describing right now, right? I love
Yep.
to think about who I was when my husband and I first got married, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, like so many tears, so many like trying to figure things out to like I think originally we all want to be able to control each other. And whether it's like overt or covert, like when we get married, we're like, okay, I've got this person, I got to mold him into the person I want to be with. And then it's like at some point you start to realize, like, no, I only really have myself to work with, right? And that person gets to be whoever the heck they want to be. I get to work and mold myself.
Yeah.
And so once we start taking that, making that shift, like they just get to be who they get to be 100% whoever they want to be because they're an adult and I love and cherish and respect who they are becoming. I get to work with myself and who
Mhm.
I'm becoming and how I'm showing up.
Yeah, and it's empowering, right? Like to know that I don't ever have to be stuck in this, right? If I want to grow and I want to change and I want to be better, I can. If I want to get more in shape, I can just keep working out. If I want to be, you know, I don't know, try to train for a marathon, which I will absolutely never do. But if I was crazy and wanted to do that, then I know I can't. Like, why not? Now, I don't want to, but if I wanted to, yeah, there are resources out there for me to go and do that. So it's the same with marriage, right? If you want your relationship to grow, then you have to nurture it. You go talk to Monica or you talk to Navarre or you just do stuff, right? Like you do the work. And so what do you think about why, and this is probably a much bigger conversation, but I think so many of the couples that you and I both see and that come across our world, um, they want the thing, but they don't want to do the work to do the thing. So what do you think are some of the, aside from trauma, if we're putting major traumas a kind of aside for a little bit, but what is the fear? What is the obstacle because I think a lot of people are like, we can't achieve that. We can't have the kind of marriage that Monica and her husband have or whatever. Like, what is it that makes people think that they can't or just they don't want to do the work?
The longer I do this work, the more I think that it's just that people don't know how. Honestly, I think when presented with enough, and I call it leverage, right? When I'm working with couples, I need leverage, right? Like here's the consequence of not doing this work, right? Or here is the payoff or benefit or reward when you decide to do this, right? And it's just a matter of people don't know where to look to find the answers. And
Hmm.
when they learn, most people are willing to put in the work, but it is hard. Like, I mean, it's
Yep.
just like staying on a meal plan or going to the gym or, sticking with, a routine of any sort. You once you know what to do, you have to just keep working those muscles until it becomes more natural to you.
Yeah. And that's exactly the answer I was hoping you would give. Because, first of all, it's brilliant. And second of all, because I want people to hear that first of all, anything worth doing takes work, right? If you want to lose the weight or get on the healthier meal plan or get stronger, then you have to do the work. And the first time you get up and you go and you haul yourself down to the gym, there's no part of you that wants to do that. But the more you do it, then you start to feel like something is missing when you don't go. It's a routine, it's a habit that without it, you feel like you didn't do the day right, and that's how it is in a marriage. Like it can be so hard to get on that same wavelength with your spouse, especially if you're bringing a lot of conflict or hardship and there's a lot of healing that has to happen at first. And so you break down that muscle and you cry and you all of your insecurities have to come out. All of your weaknesses or identified weaknesses or whatever have to come out. And then you humble yourself to start doing things that you don't really want to do, or you don't feel like it might feel fake at first or like forced to talk a certain way or communicate. But if you do it and you stick to it, then it becomes so smooth. It's not always easy. The gym, you could work out every single day of your life and still have a hard day at the gym because you're doing a lot of work. You're pushing yourself. And that's how it is in a relationship. But it does get to a point where it's not as hard. It's just maintenance. It's just the way you do things.
Yeah, very well said. I would agree.
People just need to believe that they can, I guess, right? Like you can, and
That's a big one.
that's what you and I try to teach is like, don't feel stuck in the marriage that you're in. Like if the emotional connection or intimacy or communication isn't where you want it to be, don't settle. Not worth it. Right,
That's
but
good.
hard work, you have to do the hard work. So, okay, so I'm mindful of our time. Were there any other really important aspects of this emotional intimacy and just having that relationship that you want? Can you think of anything we didn't hit on, or are we okay to wrap up?
I think we're okay to wrap up. I think it's just important to remember that many of us, I think, maybe kind of fool ourselves into thinking that we're just accepting the way the marriage is. And I like how you described that when really we are doing ourselves, our spouse, our children the highest service by really fighting for the relationship that we long for, right? And we have to just decide that it's worth it. It's worth it to keep fighting. It's worth it to keep working. It's worth it to keep practicing and honing in on these relational skill sets because it's good for everyone involved.
Yep. Well said, friend. Okay, so before we wrap up, tell us a little bit about where people can find you if they want to learn more about what you do or work with you directly.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so you can find everything about me on my website, monicatanner.com. Super simple. And you can find links there to my podcast, which is called Secrets of Happily Ever After. I have a YouTube channel with the same name. And I only really have two ways in which you can work with me. The first is through my Passionate Marriage Club. It's a membership for couples who are looking to gain these relational skills and get support as they practice accountability. And then I do one-on-one coaching. So those are really the two ways to work with me. But lots of free resources in the form of YouTube videos and podcasts and collaborations with incredible humans like you.
Thank you. For one-on-one, would you do work with individuals and couples as the couple in you, or it's just individuals in you?
I don't really work with individuals anymore. It's
Yes,
mostly just with
couples.
the couple.
Good.
Mhm.
Okay. I love it. And that's why I wanted to make sure everyone was clear on that. Thank you so much for doing this. And I will link to all of your website and everything like that. And so I really appreciate you doing this episode. It was really fun. I was looking forward to our conversation and it was everything I wanted it to be. So thank you, Monica. And I look forward. Maybe we'll do another one at another time.
That would be great. I would absolutely love it.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.